Hi there. So you can see that I'm sitting in a library, and I love libraries. I love children's books. I love all books. And here's a fantastic story that is about a librarian named Miss Brooks. Miss Brooks loves books, and I don't. She doesn't, but she does. Written by Barbara Bottner and illustrated by Michael Emberley. Written in 2010s. All right, here we go. Miss Brooks is our librarian. She loves books a lot. Look at that. She loves sitting on top of books, in amongst books. I don't think she's sitting on top of them. She's sitting in a chair, but she loves to read. She loves The Runaway Bunny and Barber and Where the Wild Things Are and The Very Hungry Caterpillar. There she is. The bunny and Barber and the wild things and the very hungry caterpillar. I asked Miss Brooks why she dresses up for reading circle. I want you to get excited about books as I am, she says. I think Miss Brooks gets a little too excited, and I bet her costumes itch. Halloween means we each have to find a poem to share, but all the books with witches, ghosts, and goblins are checked out. And I hate pumpkins. That looks like Miss Brooks dressed up like a pumpkin. So I make up a Halloween poem of my own. Eek, a freak. The class looks at me funny. Miss Brooks says, well, it's a start. Eek, a freak. Look at all the other kids all dressed up. All year long, Miss Brooks reads us books. Books about dragons and pilgrims and presidents and books about love and leprechauns, groundhogs even. It's vexing. Look at all those costumes. And there's books that go along with each of them. Then in May, Miss Brooks tells us about something truly terrifying. Book Week. Which actually, a little aside, I think is either this week or next week, but it doesn't matter. We're going to celebrate it all the time. You each need to pick a favorite story to share with the class. I want you to wear a costume and tell us all about it. Really show us why you love it, she says. It's Book Week, she announced. Look at that. Looks like all the other kids are kind of excited and they're reading too. I'll never do a book the way you do. I'll never love a book the way you do, I tell Miss Brooks. Don't be so sure, she says. Look at Miss Brooks there. I love all the flowers in her hair, flower earrings and everything. When I get home, I ask my mother if we can move to a new town. My mother says, there's a librarian in every town. Look at the mother all in her coveralls. Poor little girl just does not want to do this assignment. I ask if she wants to do my assignment for me. I've already been in the first grade, says my mother, as she paints away. So here we are at Book Week. Looks like the first kid is going to read a story about a train. And then the next one is a flower fairy, and there's a cowboy, and then there's a dog. Every single day of Book Week, kids share stories about trains and fairies and cowboys and dogs. Look at them all. There's a story for every one of those, isn't there? They're all dressed up, all the little kids in their costumes. Would you like to do that? When Miss Brooks asks what I think, I say, too flowery, too flowery, too furry, too Too clickety about the train. Too yippity about the horse. So Miss Brooks fills my bag with more books for me to read with my mom. Look at that. Is there enough books in that bag? Woo-hoo. I don't know how she's going to carry that home. But I don't like any of them. They're too kissy or too pink or too silly, I tell my mother. You're as stubborn as a wart, she says. Warts? Warts? Sounds like an idea is brewing here. I want to read a story about warts, I shout. Warts! Warts, warts, warts. My mother finds a book called, can you guess? Shrek. Shrek has hairs on his nose and he snorts. I love that. Can I read it again, I asks. And the mum's doing all the noises. Snort, 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 snort. All about Shrek. So it looks like the mother's sewing her a Shrek costume. Snort, 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 little girl says. I love this book. I have to practice the words over and over, but my mother helps. Then we make an ogre costume. I make stick-on warts for the whole class. Look at all those. Look at all those little warts that she's making. How's she doing that? Oh, she's cutting them out. When I get to school the next day, I ask Miss Brooks to lend me a hand. Look at, she's sticking warts on every kid's nose. Would you do that? I think I would for a story. When I say the word snort, the whole class snorts. Snort, 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 snort. I explain why a stubborn, smelly, snorty ogre searching for a revolting bride makes me laugh. Look at the librarian back here. She is just, yeah, cheering her on. Miss Brooks says she's glad I found a book to love. She said that even ogres like me can find something funny and fantastic and appealing and appalling, in the library. Look at that, Miss Brooks. She is so great. And that is the slimy truth. Yeah. Well, I bet you she's going to read a lot more stories now. That she's found one about a snort and a wart and an ogre. I love Shrek. I think it's really a great story. There's great movies about it too. So I hope that you can find this in your library. That's where I found it. And maybe you could find this in your bookstore too. Such a great story. So much fun to look at these pictures. And then you can read it over and over and over again. All right. Bye for now.